Hi, my name is Natalie Wright, and this is my Theater 100 History Timeline project. To start off with time eras, we have the Greece and Roman theater. This was possibly one of the earliest time eras for theater productions. It took place in the 8th century BCE and consisted of writing scripts for these productions to take place. Eventually, the purpose of this time era was for the dramas to kind of experiment in different genres such as tragedy and comedy. Playwrights also were seen as writing or creating choruses to take place in the action parts such as climaxes in their dramas. Romans were actually but it's known that they cut down the Greeks' stage, so instead of being an arena, it was only half of that for the audience. And eventually, the decay of the empire and the barbarians led to the downfall of this period, however, led to the rise of the medieval time era. This was a result because of the Roman Empire, and since it kind of went down, there was no reliable or stable government for the people, so they looked towards the Christian church. The main purpose for this that impacted society was that each performance or production were based off biblical stories in literature, drama, religious people, and churches. People really looked into and took in the church and the Christian ways of believing. However, eventually the Eastern Roman Empire then fell, which led us to the Renaissance, which is also known as the rebirth of the Roman Greek theater. And this was first established in Italy during 1580 to 1680, so approximately 100 years of playwrights and productions. One of the most famous playwrights in history was Shakespeare, and he began to lay groundwork for the plays within this time era. And he actually wanted to experiment with reality and incorporate that into his plays. During this time era was the introduction of the proscenium stage with the arch, which is also one of the most famous, the most popular stages that we have today in modern era. However, due to the lack of funding in the arts and theater department, the Renaissance soon ended, and we were led to the neoclassicism, which lasted around 200 years. It was one of the longer time eras, and started in Rome, but it spread to Greece, then most of Western Europe. For these, the Italians were actually seen as developing reality and universality themes or purposes. They wanted their productions to be universal for everyone to relate to what they wrote. However, the government in France actually saw theater as a big impact on society. It was seen as what the theater does reflects on the society. So the government recognized this and wanted to control this culture, control what kind of productions were being produced and made. And with all the restrictions that King Louis made on neoclassicism, the time era, it eventually did fall. But however, it led to the English Restoration drama. Due to all the closings of the theaters, because of all of the restrictions King Louis made, performances had to be done in secrecy. when the opening of theaters and productions were made again, this is when women finally got the chance to become actresses and participate in the productions as well. It affected most of Europe around the 16th century, and like I said, the purpose of this time era was to basically reform after the restrictions of the last era. Shakespeare's plays became lightened again. They were popular, and this paved for the next movement, which was the melodrama. This was a very popular time era. In the 19th century, it began in Europe, soon traveled to America. I believe it's very popular because it first presented the two characters as a villain and a hero. Audiences seemed to like this because it was like rooting. You get a team and it's versus the villain or the hero. And during the drama of this production and the climax that would eventually come, melodramas were seen to include music during the scenes to give the imagination of the audience more vividness and enhance the imagination for them. However, they tried to reform political systems where the melodrama affected, so soon we transfer to realism and naturalism. This was the late 19th century when this was put into effect. Playwrights for realism were seen to have the purpose of creating productions that applied to scientific method. Unlike the last one where it looked at more hero versus villain and imagination, this is more realistic. It wanted to base their productions off of truths about humanity instead of seeing happy endings and such. Artists were beginning to look inward for meanings instead of outward. They wanted to look at the emotions and the subconscious mind. And this became a deeper idea which evolved into symbolism. During around 1885 in Germany and 1910, it was like they took symbols, they took objects and symbolized them to reshape the human spirit. To perceive distorted external forces, basically what they saw, artists and playwrights, they saw external forces becoming distorted and dismantled, and they wanted to fix that. Instead of cause and effect, they wanted fantasy and magic. However, soon that transitioned into absurdism, which is around the mid-20th century. This movement officially developed in France, however, then spread. And it began because of the crazy world events happening at this time, such as World War II or the Holocaust. Artists and playwrights and actors they saw this movement they saw this life era as being chaotic, and they concluded that there was no way out of this chaos, this life disaster. So they created themes and purposes. They wanted to inform yet entertain audiences. So they turned the illogical life events into themes such as Meaningless World and created plays that way. This was a very influential movement, which then transformed into postmodern is what we have now. it was more of a de-emphasizing on the text. It was more visual. One of the most famous playwrights, Mueller, actually produced a play which was loosely based on Hamlet, called Hamlet Machine. And these postmodern works are far from meaningless. They wanted to show meaning and create a sense of logic for the audience. Multiple themes and purposes, not just one. However, if we were to see radical revolutionists and these artists and activists, they would believe that postmodern is not what it was created for. Yes, it goes after the meaning in modern time. However, it's not as active, and it doesn't get the audience thinking about modern day life events as strongly as the revolutionists and the activists would like. And that's actually the last era. That's the era that we're with postmodern. And overall, this is my theater history project. I believe it shows how theater has strongly impacted society, and based on what the theater believes and portrays to the audience, has a real impact on how society sees values and beliefs and how they choose to act as a whole. Thank you.